Hi, it's Stu Richards. Thank you for joining us today on our latest Fastcast. Today, we're going to be sharing research with you on the topic of payment solutions. And as folks log in, what I wanted to do is take you through, those of you who may not be familiar with Braden, who we are and what we do for companies that seek to understand and engage the small to mid-sized business segment. So you can see the logos of the folks with whom we've worked over the years, all kinds of companies in all different kinds of segments, whether it's tech, telecommunications, wide range of financial services, HR, retail, you name it. But the goal in every case has been to help our clients either to better understand the SMB segment through original research. And as you can see, the research that we do can take a variety of different forms. In the very center column, the methods that we use to obtain insights into the SMB segment really vary. It might be doing qualitative research like focus groups or one-on-ones. It might be doing quantitative research, for example, online surveys. And those in turn can be, quick turn agile or really deep dive. You can see the kinds of topics that we've investigated in the second to left column and or second to right. And in terms of who we survey, we're myopically focused on SMB. And we tend to think of SMB as up to 500 employees. Our clients, of course, have a wide range of different definitions, whether it's headcount or revenue or industry or location, you name it. But within that, we can certainly survey anyone that you're interested in reaching, whether it's by role or location or industry, you name it. And at the end of the day, the research that we do is designed to support our clients either marketing objectives, to help with, for example, messaging or go-to-market strategy. It might be to support product strategy, or we conduct research to drive outbound programs. So that might mean doing a survey to generate data for a white paper or a webcast or all different kinds of content elements. And those, of course, are not mutually exclusive. We can help shape the kind of research that's going to help you achieve your goals. The thing that we do is turning research into content. So in some cases, we'll do a survey and hand the data over to our client's content team. In other cases, we'll develop content for them. You can see, a wide range of different kinds of formats that we can create depending on, where you are in the sales cycle. But we really, we're biased, but we love using original data in content. It's certainly differentiable, but really the big driver of its value is that small business owners love to learn from their peers, and being able to play back, peer experiences or peer learnings through sharing data. We've just found that to be incredibly powerful, year after year. So anyway, that's us. And what I wanted to do is to take you through the topic of the research today, which of course is on payments broadly. And we'll cover a variety of topics in our half hour together on payments, both in terms of specific payment types and platforms, how small businesses learn about them, what kind of offer will get them to accept it, who they want to buy from, all those good things. But in terms of how we obtained the research that I'll take you through, every month we do a survey of 500 principals of US companies with up to 500 employees. Principal meaning owner, founder, partner, president, CEO, managing director, someone like that who's got a really good perspective on the, overall workings of their organization. We do stratify the sample by size. So half of the respondents come from what we call very small businesses or VSBs, that is under 20 employees. Another 150 of them are from companies with 20 to 99 employees. In the deck, we refer to them as small businesses or SBs, and the remaining 100 come from bigger companies, those with 100 to 500 employees, and we call those mid-sized businesses or MBs. We conducted this particular survey in the December wave of the SMB pulse, but still, this data is pretty current, and I think a good read on where SMBs are in terms of payment utilization today. And a little bit more in terms of who specifically participated in the research. You can see had to be principal, we put quotas around the headcount. We do ask, in this case, if they're profitable. Most are, as you might imagine, but not all of them. Good mix by revenue, by age of business. Pretty optimistic about their outlook, at least for last year compared to 2022, and we see that holding pretty steady so far this year. We also ask about where they're from, so good mix by either their state or region, or within that urban, suburban, or rural locations, and a good mix, of course, by industry. We certainly don't set any quotas there. So all of that is to say, it's a pretty good read on the SMB. We ask a little bit about them personally as well. So with that, the very first question that we asked of our 500 SMB principals was, well, how do you get paid? What kinds of payments do you accept? And what you see, cash is still king, at least except for the small businesses in our sample. So before I jump into the takeaways, let me show you how to read this chart. So on the left in blue are the responses from the very small businesses, the under 20 employees. In the middle in orange are the responses from the small businesses in our set, 2099 employees, and on the right in the green are the responses from our mid-sized businesses. You'll also see there's little circles by those. Those are always in order, rank order of first, second, and third most popular responses, and we just rank them by very small businesses. And that's just to call out how the responses vary, in terms of ranking by size. You'll also notice in some of the bars there are little letters, in this case A, that all that indicates is that response, or that percentage, is statistically significantly higher than the response in column A. So in column A is the very small businesses. And, for example, 80% of small businesses said they accept credit or debit cards online, on their website. And that's significantly higher than the 58% of very small businesses who do. So that's how to read the chart. The takeaways from this chart are, of course, that cash is very commonly accepted. As a matter of fact, it's the most frequently accepted form of payment by both very small businesses and mid-sized businesses. Although actually technically with mid-sized businesses, it's a tie with credit cards online. And you'll see for small business and mid-sized business, the third most common is credit cards, in a physical store, brick and mortar location. So, despite the move to, all kinds of electronic and online peer-to-peer payments, cash, cards, and checks still remain, by far the most common forms of payment. We understand what sort of platforms small businesses use for accepting payments. And so here we just asked them, simple yes or no question, whether they do a variety of things like using invoicing software, for example, from FreshBooks or QuickBooks. And as you can see, most of them do. As a matter of fact, 80% of mid-sized businesses do. Have a physical or mobile point of sale system. So, they're a retailer, a restaurant, something like that. And you can see, a lot. Obviously, that's going to vary by industry quite a bit. Here, we've just got it by size. But that's very common to have some sort of POS system. Do they sell through social media like Facebook or TikTok? The answer is yes. In most cases, a little over half of very small and small businesses do. A little better than 2 out of 3 of the biggest businesses do. And allow customers to pay via their website. Again, most businesses do. And you can see for the bigger businesses, and this is a pretty common dynamic, they're much more likely to sell through a variety of platforms than their smaller peers, even things like, Uber Eats or DoorDash, or, offering things like buy now, pay later. The next question we asked was, okay, so you've got a whole bunch of different payment options in most cases. And what are your pain points with those? What are the disadvantages or drawbacks? And the answer for certainly very small businesses and small businesses is mostly the costs associated with that. And even cash, of course, has a cost. You might need a secure register, and you've got to go to the bank and deposit it. So it's not completely transaction or cost free. For mid-sized businesses, they're most concerned about security, and that is very consistent with their behavior. It's interesting, almost in every case when we have a security option in a survey, that is what mid-sized businesses are most attuned to, whether it's, cyber security, physical security. They're really concerned about that, and they just understand the potential cost of, some sort of security disruption. So again, important to think about these as you're developing messaging for your solutions, or even, of course, thinking about aspects or features of your offerings. Security is a super high concern for mid-sized businesses, and second, for very small and small businesses, and very closely tied to that is fraud, of course, especially for the very small and small businesses. Time to receive payment is third in this survey. Now, we did this same survey last spring. We presented the results in July, so roughly a year ago, we did the survey. And time to receive payments has really increased. Last year, 14% of mid-sized businesses expressed that as a concern. This year, it's 23%. So, that's something that they're very cognizant of well. So, if they accept credit card payments, then it takes 3 to 5 days to receive payment. They would love that to be 1 or 2 days. So again, if your solution supports quick payment, definitely something to promote, especially for your bigger clients. We wanted to get a sense of their budget or spending outlook for payments technology. And here we just said, okay, do you expect your budget to increase on the left, to stay the same as 2023 in orange, or decrease? Very few, as you can see, expect to decrease spending on their payments technology, whether it's a POS system or their e-commerce system, whatever it is. Almost half of very small businesses expect to increase spending. 3 out of 5 small businesses and more than 2 out of 3 mid-sized businesses expect to increase spending. So on the right, you can see, so for the folks who said they're going to be increasing spending, we said, okay, what are you going to be investing in this year? And the most common response, most of the folks who said they're going to increase spending is some sort of invoicing solution. Again, if they don't have it already, or potentially upgrading, Autobooks, FreshBooks, QuickBooks, some solution like that, or adding or enhancing their online, commerce solution like a Shopify or WooCommerce. In a fair number, 2 out of 5 expect to invest or upgrade their point of sale system, like a Block, Clover, Toast, or any of the many POS systems that are out there. This is interesting. We just said, okay, have you lost a sale based on not accepting a type of payment that a customer wanted to use? And the answer, to a surprising degree, is yes. And actually to a much higher degree now than it was even last July when we last did this survey. So you can see 37%, exactly the same percentage of both very small businesses and small businesses have lost a sale because someone wanted to use, pick one, PayPal, Cash App, but cryptocurrency, and the vendor didn't accept it. And if you look at mid-sized businesses, it's over half. And each of those have gone up a little bit, as I mentioned, since the last time. For very small businesses, the last time we did this survey last spring, it was 26%, now 37%. For small businesses, it was 28%, now 37%. For mid-sized businesses, it was 48%. Not a huge increase, but still, up to more than half now. So, this says that, small businesses, they're losing. And again, we just asked, have you lost a sale? It might only be one, but, this definitely feeds their desire to increase the number of payment options they support in order to not lose sales. So to drill into that a little bit, we wanted to get a sense of how important, when they're thinking about aspects of payment solutions overall, how important are customer payment preferences? And the answer, of course, is, not surprisingly, is very important. They really do want to be able to accept the kinds of payments that their customers want. So in every case, more than half of respondents, regardless of size, said, it's very or extremely important that, when our customers express desire to use a particular kind of payment, that we be able to accept it. And you can see on the open end over on the right, we said, what options have you added or are you thinking about adding this year? Definitely P2P, PayPal, Cash App. You'll see smaller, Apple Pay, Zelle, Venmo, but also BNPL. We're definitely seeing more interest in using that to, help customers finance purchases. And here we really put into context the driver of customer requests in terms of overall aspects of a solution that they want. So a couple slides ago, we looked at the pain points, what they don't necessarily love about their system. Here's what they want in a payment solution, or rather I should say, here's what they would look for, or what might prompt them to start looking. Customer requests, you can see, is big. Probably not surprisingly, especially of course if it's costing them sales. So for very small businesses, that's the most important reason they would start looking for a new payment solution. For mid-sized businesses, it's to save time, and that doesn't necessarily just mean simply receiving payments faster, although that's important for mid-sized businesses, but that might mean all kinds of time in, budgeting or, getting reimbursements from vendors, or, all of the aspects of collecting and managing payments, which, for a big business in particular, can be pretty time consuming. And also it's interesting, I think tied into that very closely, for both small and mid-sized businesses, the third biggest driver is to increase productivity. And again, some of the functions associated with accepting and processing payments can be pretty time consuming. So, again, to the degree that your solution helps your clients to be productive, that can be a pretty compelling selling point. This is the question that really gets at, the purchase considerations overall. So, we talked in the previous slide about what would get them to start looking at a solution. Here's, kind of the set of things that they evaluate when looking at at payment solutions overall. So reliability is really important. There definitely been some outages that you've probably seen on the part of major payments networks. That's very painful for small businesses when that happens. So, they want uptime. Especially very small businesses. For the bigger businesses, it's interesting. It's actually a tie. Customer service is really important, as is scalability, the ability to grow with us. But security and fraud protection, probably not surprisingly, given how important we saw that was earlier. And again, how quickly they receive payment is really important for the very small and small businesses here. Now, it was interesting earlier, we saw that one of the pain points, especially for very small and small businesses, about their payments solutions overall is the cost of transactions or managing expenses. And here you can see costs overall aren't at the very top of the list of things that they look for. So you don't necessarily need to lead with cost. That might be, if you're selling payment solutions, that might be your position in the marketplace, but that's not the biggest concern overall. We'll see a little bit later, very small businesses are much more price sensitive than their larger peers. That's true, not just for payment solutions, but across the board. But here, again, really important to emphasize, your reliability, your customer service, and that can certainly take precedence over, the cost, whether it's total cost per transaction, however it's broken out. Here, just to drill into costs, this is interesting. When we asked this question last year, and again presented the responses in July, total cost was #1 overall. That's changed a little bit. Now it's #1 only for small businesses. What's #1 for very small businesses is a cost per transaction. So, if I'm selling a candy bar for $1.50, how much am I giving to my credit card company, for example? That can be a big expense for small businesses. For mid-sized businesses, it's interesting. Hardware costs were the single biggest a concern. Setup, purchase, lease costs, although that's a pretty small fraction, and it's only just barely ahead of the folks who said cost per transaction or total cost. So they could only pick one here, and you can see the cost that's most important is really dispersed for mid-sized businesses, whereas for very small and small businesses, it's all around either total cost or cost per transaction. A little bit different topic here, not so much focused on product or cost, but rather the media or the information sources that small businesses use when they're looking for information. So we asked earlier about what would trigger you to start looking for a solution. Here's how they would look, and the answer is search. Probably not surprisingly, that's the number one way that regardless of company size, SMBs would start to look for information about a payment solution, of whatever kind. After that, it varies a little bit. Peers are really important for very small businesses. YouTube, surprisingly important for very small and mid-sized businesses. It's actually tied for second, along with rating or review sites. So like the G2s of the world are a really important resource. And the vendor sales representative is really important, especially for small businesses. It's interesting, MSPs were the highest rated source last year, and this year they've dropped down to 14%. And YouTube is increasing in importance, and we see that across the board, not just for payment solutions, but all different kinds of solutions or services. SMBs are really turning more and more to YouTube, so that's a really important outlet for you to be on if that's not a place that you're already using. We also wanted to understand the purchase channel. This is also interesting in terms of kind of a switch or move from the last time we did this research. Last time, pretty strong, clear preference across the board for buying directly from the vendor, the Square or Toast, for example. This time, they're more interested in getting it from the bank. So if you're from a bank, this is really good news for you. Because obviously small businesses are looking to you as a trusted source, as a secure source, as a way to provide payment solutions, and that may be fed by many banks. Of course, have partnerships with invoicing solutions now, and of course many are getting more aggressively into the payment space. So we're seeing that really reflected in the receptivity that small businesses have to obtaining payment solutions from their banks. Basically here we just asked them at open end what they want from, or why they wanted to get a solution from that particular channel, again, whether it's a bank or from the vendor directly. The biggest thing that jumps out: ease, simplicity, convenience all across the board, but also trust in their vendor and security. And clearly, banks are perceived very well as a general rule in those regards. Okay, so getting towards the end here, one of the other questions that we wanted to ask is, if you have a prospect who's on the fence about your payment solution, how do you get them to make a purchase decision, to get them to commit? And the answer varies according to their size. And here, they had to answer just one of these options. And for very small businesses, they're most likely to be swayed by a free trial. So 30, 60, 90 days. Now, that's pretty compelling from the vendor standpoint because, trialing a payment solution, that's pretty sticky. So, it's once you've gotten them set up, they're pretty likely to stay with it. It's interesting though, for the mid-sized businesses, they're most likely to say some sort of a price reduction. So, if you give me a deal, give me a discount on, the first year, whatever it might be, that's most compelling. Or, some sort of reduced priced upgrade. So, put me into your gold package if I was looking at buying the silver package, however the pricing works. But it's interesting, free trial is a little bit less compelling this time around for very small businesses than it was last July. So they're a little bit more interested in things like assistance with installation or some sort of a price reduction as opposed to a free trial. So again, these are going to really depend on the economics of your offer, but free trial discounted offer is pretty compelling. And then the last couple slides, we did a conjoint analysis. And if you're not familiar with these, it's actually conceptually very simple. We just give people here, you can see 5 kind of benefits of a solution. And we ask them effectively to trade off. And you can see each of these, if you go down the columns, they all add to 100. So it's as if you've given each respondent 100 chips, and they get to place as many as they want on each of these benefits. And here, and it's a great way to get a sense of, for example, what attributes are most compelling about a particular offer, or, if you're developing a product, what features are most compelling. And here you can see that, when you're evaluating a point of sale solution as a small business owner, they really put an emphasis on security, which is great. That's what they had told us previously. So again, to the degree that your solution, prioritizes security as an offering, you really do want to emphasize that. We saw earlier, when we asked about it, that was really important for the mid-sized businesses, but here, it's really important across the board. Price, a very close second. For very small businesses who, again, are very price sensitive compared to the larger peers, for larger businesses, they put more of an emphasis or a premium on reliability than pricing. And to get a little bit more granular, again, when you've gone through the conjoint analysis, you can do a little bit of data magic and get into utility curves. And here, so for each of the 5 benefits or product attributes that we looked at, you can calculate the value of each of them according to the respondent size. So the blue, again, is very small businesses. The orange is for small 20 to 99 employee businesses, and the green is for mid-sized businesses. And what this does is help you determine, exactly how much of a priority you have to put on each of these. So security overall, really important. And you can see in each case, reasonably steep angle, meaning, reasonably high increase in utility, the better the security is, which is, what you would expect. And likewise, if you look at the monthly price, the higher the monthly price for the solution overall, and that can be including, of course, hardware and, transaction costs. Not surprisingly, the higher the price, the lower the utility, but you can see that's a pretty steep curve for very small businesses who, as I mentioned, are very price sensitive. Not so much, not a huge difference in utility between, $300 a month and $1,200 a month for the larger businesses. Reliability is where things get, I think, more interesting. So if you look at the small businesses in orange, they actually see less utility in extreme reliability than in very high reliability. So there, you don't necessarily need to optimize reliability as much for them. But what I think is most interesting is an ease of use. You can see the utility curves are pretty flat. So not a huge increase in utility from not easy to use to extremely easy to use, and likewise, not a huge, despite the fact that we saw, desire for increased payment speed, not a huge increase in utility on the part of respondents from, 5 or more days to receive payment to same day, which is interesting. You'd think that would be a pretty sharp increase. So again, this helps you determine, and, to a degree, there's not a lot of differences by company size here other than, in the varying utility by price. But this is a really useful tool to determine, which attributes to prioritize, whether for product development or for messaging. So that's it. Just a couple key takeaways. Reliability, security, fraud protection are key purchase considerations. Cost, of course, for very small businesses. So clearly important to highlight how your solution provides them. Cost, as we talked about a number of times, important but not critical. especially for larger businesses. In terms of media, search is the way, at least the leading way that SMBs look for information on your solution. So really important that all of your content is SEO optimized. Interestingly, SMBs, prefer to buy from their bank. Great news for banks. And so, if you are offering payment solutions of whatever kind, really make sure it's easy for them to find it on your site, to learn about it, to, have someone to talk with on your staff about that, and make it easy for them to buy it. And in terms of offers, free trial or discount is most effective. So that's it. What I wanted to do is to close out. If we can help you with a deeper dive on payments, for example, helping you optimize your messaging depending on company size or industry, for example, or helping you optimize product, we'd love the opportunity to do that. Or if there are other ways we can support your small business go to market through research, please reach out. And likewise, if you need high value content that's data driven, we can certainly help you with that. We're going to be having another webcast next month, focusing specifically on SaaS, a little bit different topic, but always interesting. I hope you'll be able to join us on that. We'll be promoting that pretty soon. In the meantime, hope you found this information useful, thought-provoking, actionable. And again, please reach out if we can be of help with research or outreach programs. But in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you on the next Braden webcast. Thanks very much.